In 2006, we saw the release of The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion, and now over 19 years later, we've seen the release of The Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion Remastered. But what exactly has changed over these 19 years when it comes to attention to detail? So guys, Oblivion Remastered is a real thing, and this feels like a dream. Oblivion is one of my favorite games of all time. I got Oblivion back here, I got Oblivion over here. I absolutely adore Oblivion. It's one of my favorite games of all time, so I've been really excited to do this direct comparison of the original Oblivion from 2006 versus Oblivion Remastered. Guys, I hope you enjoy this video as much as I enjoyed making it for you guys, and if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to Live from My Basement, where I make cool new videos like the one you're watching right now all the time. But guys, I hope you enjoy this video, and let's dive in. So right off the bat, the first thing you'll notice between Oblivion and its remaster is the complete graphical overhaul between the two versions of the game. Landscapes that looked great back in 2006 have never looked better with this new graphical coat of paint that really breathes new life to this nearly 20-year-old game. But it's not just the landscapes, as all the character models have been completely redone from the ground up, alongside all the creatures that inhabit Cyrodiil. But I do have to say, certain characters like Boris and the remaster do look great, though the eyelash extensions are questionable. But one thing I really find interesting is that the success of The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim has really influenced some of the parts of the Oblivion Remaster, and what I mean by that is take the city of Bruma, for example, the northernmost city in Cyrodiil closest to the Skyrim border, and what used to just kind of look like basic wooden buildings in the snowy town have really been influenced by the Viking Nordic-esque architecture that we've seen in Skyrim, which is pretty cool. Not to mention at night, if you look up into the sky, if you look towards the north, towards the Skyrim border, you can actually see the northern lights in the sky above that region, which are the same northern lights we see decorating the sky in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, which I think is a pretty cool touch and something we don't see in the original Oblivion. But another key visual difference between Oblivion and its remaster is that the render distance has been pushed much further out into the distance in the remaster, whereas in the original Oblivion you could literally see the grass rendering right in front of you, or even take stepping out of the Imperial Sewers, for example. When you look up towards the Gerald Mountains in the original Oblivion, you can only see the Gerald Mountains, whereas in the remaster you can actually see that Frostcrag Spire is rendered on top of the mountain, which is something you could not see in the original Oblivion in 2006. And speaking of visual enhancements, the lighting has been completely overhauled in the Oblivion Remaster, whereas in the remaster we actually have dynamic god rays that interact with the geometry of the environment and help make the world feel more realistic. Even ambient light has seen major changes, as the light actually lights up the environment more realistically and casts more realistic looking shadows. These enhancements are also very apparent in the way the remaster lights its characters.
Better not close this one. There's no way to open it from the other side.
Don't try anything.
Looks like this is your lucky day. Just stay out of our way.
Another detail that makes the world of Oblivion Remastered feel more alive is the addition of more ambient life, more butterflies in the environment, birds in the sky, or if you jump into a river, you can actually see wild fish swimming under the water, whereas in the original Oblivion, you didn't see anything like that, except for the occasional slaughterfish that would try to kill you. Another awesome addition in the Oblivion Remaster is the addition of a bunch of new animations in the game. Like anytime you go to open a door, you actually see the door start to crack open as you pass through, or if you go to loot a barrel, you actually see the lid of the barrel lift off as you access its inventory. Animations like this that weren't in the original Oblivion go a long way in making you feel like you actually have hands-on in the environment and in the world, and it's cool to see this feature from Skyrim return in Oblivion. And on top of that, there's even new animations for like assassinations, for like when the Emperor gets assassinated, instead of him, you know, just getting bonked on the head like he did in the original Oblivion. Another cool detail in the Oblivion Remaster is that your clothes actually have their own physics in the remaster, so like anytime your character's moving around, you can actually see your clothes moving around on your character model, which is a nice addition. And even some items like the goblin staff I have right here, whenever I have it equipped on me, I can actually see the ears and the mouth on the goblin's head moving around, which is pretty gnarly and something we didn't see at all in the original Oblivion. Another enhancement in the Oblivion Remaster that's pretty meaningful to me actually has to do with the dialogue, because in the original Oblivion, whenever you engage a dialogue with an NPC, the world around you would completely freeze, the characters, the environment, everything would stand still, and the person you're talking to would just kind of be like a bobbing head as their body would freeze, but their head could still move.
It looks bad. It is bad.
Whereas in the remaster, though the characters still freeze in the environment itself still has some motion. It still feels a little bit alive. You'll see leaves falling in the background. If there's an Oblivion gate in the background, it won't be frozen static. It'll actually be swirling in flames, and it looks great. Things like this that make the world feel more alive when you're having a conversation than what we saw in Oblivion when it originally launched. Not to mention the characters you're talking to have a lot more articulate body language in the remaster. They're not just bobbing heads, they can actually articulate with their arms and their hands, and it's a huge improvement over what we saw with the original Oblivion. Another interesting detail between Oblivion and its remaster is that in the original Oblivion, any guard you encountered within the open world had the same iconic Oblivion guard voice that we all know and love, whereas in the Oblivion remaster, they actually added a bunch of new voices for all the characters within the open world, making it feel a bit more realistic, including the Imperial Guards, and though there is a part of me that wishes all the guards still had the same iconic voice, I guess this is okay.
Bo Thiel from the Arcane University is looking for someone to chase the bandits from Camp Hales. Probably trying to enhance her weird machine.
And moving on to another detail I was happy to see added in the Oblivion remaster, because in the original Oblivion, whenever it came to facial hair, you basically just had to paint your character's face the color of the beard or the mustache that you wanted to imply that your character had, whereas in the Oblivion remaster, you actually have 3D rendered facial hair, which is, of the likes of what we saw in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, and it's nice to see it added here in the Oblivion remaster. And moving on now to a comparison of the melee combat between Oblivion and its remaster, because in the original Oblivion, whenever you engaged in melee combat, the enemies that you were hitting wouldn't really react to your hits. Occasionally they would stagger, but mostly you were just swinging at them endlessly until their health went down all the way and they died. Whereas in the remaster, every hit that you hit on an enemy, you actually see them flinch and react to the actual melee hit. You actually see blood spatter flying off in the air whenever you hit them as well, and it makes the combat feel much more kinetic than what we saw in the original Oblivion. And speaking of combat, one of the cooler changes they did to the basic melee attack is that the animation is not just your basic left to right swinging like you had in the original Oblivion, whereas in the remaster we actually have cool combos that we do with the different weapons, and the combos look different depending on whether you're using a knife or even just your fists.
Morning.
And now we're moving on to a comparison of the fire magic effects between Oblivion and its remaster, and as you can see here in the original Oblivion, whenever you cast a fire spell, it does detonate when it hits the environment, but it immediately burns out, whereas in the Oblivion remaster, whenever you cast this exact same spell, you can actually see that it burns and chars the environment, and you can see it smoldering and smoking, and it looks really cool before it ultimately disappears. And speaking of destruction spells, and interestingly enough, in the original Oblivion, if you cast a snowball spell, it actually does linger around in the environment a lot longer than what we saw with the fireball, though in the Oblivion remaster, it looks much better as the snowball spell actually breaks off and ice chunks fall to the ground, and you can actually hear it like freezing and crusting over with ice, and it looks great. And moving on to the next comparison, I just really quickly wanted to compare the restoration spell effects between Oblivion and its remaster, because in the original Oblivion, I loved the look of the restoration spells with the blue. I thought it looked great, though in the remaster, they went with more of the yellow light look from the restoration spells used in Skyrim, and though it still looks and sounds great, I do prefer the way it looks and sounds in the original Oblivion. But another detail you'll immediately notice between Oblivion and its remaster is that the player movement animations and locomotion have been completely overhauled in the Oblivion remaster. Moving around the environment just looks and feels much more weighty and grounded in the remaster versus what we saw in the original Oblivion, and playing the game in third person, whether you're in combat or just exploring, looks far more natural than what we saw in the original Oblivion. And speaking of player movement, one of the biggest changes in this area, outside the overhaul of character animations in general, is the addition of sprint in the Oblivion remaster, which is something we definitely didn't have in the original Oblivion. And though I get, it's serviceable in a single-player game, I will say it's a bit wonky looking. Another neat detail I noticed between Oblivion and its remaster actually has to do with the horses, because in the original Oblivion, whenever your character mounted a horse, I think it's implied by the way that your character holds his hands, but your character's not holding onto any reins or anything of the type in the original Oblivion, whereas in the remaster, whenever your character mounts a horse, you can actually see he takes the horse by the reins, which is a really cool addition to see when it comes to attention to detail. And I know it's worth mentioning that, you know, obviously there was no sprint in the original Oblivion, and your characters can sprint in the remaster, though in the remaster your horse can sprint as well, making the fastest mode of transportation outside of fast travel a bit more fast. But of all the enhancements between Oblivion and its remaster, one of the biggest enhancements has to be with the archery, because in the original Oblivion, archery, you know, it just didn't really do that much damage. You basically just got where the enemies couldn't get you, and you just sit there and fill them full of arrows until finally they went down. Whereas in the Oblivion remaster, archery is a lot more slow and methodical, though the arrows do much more damage, and it actually makes marksmanship feel much more viable in the remaster versus how it was in the original Oblivion. And speaking of archery, the enhancements made to archery in the remaster are felt tenfold in third person, whereas in the original Oblivion, archery in third person just really wasn't viable. You just kind of ran around at full movement speed, shooting arrows as fast as you can, hoping that the arrows would hit the target because you didn't have a crosshair, whereas in the remaster, you actually have a more fixed camera angle that actually gives you a crosshair so that you can actually accurately hit your targets in third person, and it feels so much better.
Stand back, civilian. This is no place for you. Get back to the encampment at once.
But when it comes to the visual changes between Oblivion and its remaster, one of my favorites is the design of the Oblivion gates themselves. Whereas in the original Oblivion, whenever you look at an Oblivion gate, it looks great, though when you look through the gate, you kind of see straight through it through kind of like a fire filter. Whereas in the remaster, whenever you look into an Oblivion gate, you're actually looking into a plane of Oblivion itself. You can actually see into Oblivion, and I absolutely love that. And if you're inside of Oblivion and you look out, you can actually see Cyrodiil, which is a really cool creative decision that I was very happy to see. And moving on now to a comparison of the water effects between Oblivion and its remaster. And in the original Oblivion, I mean, come on guys, this game is from 2006, and these are fantastic looking water effects for a game that nearly came out 20 years ago. But then you look at the Oblivion remaster, and it's infinitely better. Look at the reflections on the water. They look far more realistic than what we saw in the original Oblivion. And the actual water effects themselves look, I mean, they don't look amazing, but they do look noticeably better than what we saw in the original Oblivion. Not to mention when you swim in the water in the original Oblivion, you just kind of feel like a head bobbing above the surface, whereas in the remaster, whenever you're swimming in the water, they actually added animations for your arms to actually swim or propel you through the water, which is a pretty cool addition. And with my final comparison in this video, I wanted to see if there's any difference between Oblivion and its remaster when it comes to death animations when falling to your death. And as you can see here in the original Oblivion, you just kind of splat, whereas in the remaster, whenever you do this exact same thing, it does the exact same thing. Well guys, you made it to the end. Thank you for watching my direct comparison of the original Oblivion versus the newly released Shadow Dropped Oblivion Remastered. I still can't believe this is a real game that we have so, like, just out of nowhere. But either way guys, I hope you enjoyed this direct comparison as much as I enjoyed making it for you guys. I can't wait to dive back into Oblivion Remastered. That's what I'm going to go do right now. But either way guys, I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed creating it for you guys. And if you did, be sure to drop a like on the video and maybe subscribe if you haven't already. It means a lot. But guys, that's all I have for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. See ya.